Okay, we're recording.
So the open public meeting statement is not on here? Not on the agenda for me just to read it? It's disappointing.
Sorry.
Since my briefcase is in the car. Anybody else have it?
You don't know it by heart by now?
I don't. I learn something new every time I read it. Does anybody have it? I seriously would have to go to my car.
Hold on.
So on the zoning board, we print it right on the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a good job of actually printing this and assumed it was there. I'm sorry. That's definitely my bad.
I have it. I can read it. If that's permitted.
Sure.
Okay.
The statement just has to be read. There's no
Okay.
specific designation.
This is a regular meeting of the Fairhaven Planning Board. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. At the time of the board reorganization in January of this year, the board adopted its regular meeting schedule for the year. Notice of the schedule was sent to and published in the Asbury Park Press and was also sent to the Two River Times and the Star Ledger. That notice was also posted on the bulletin board in Borough Hall and has remained continuously posted there as required by the statute. A copy of the notice is and has been available to the public is on file in the office of the Borough Clerk. A copy of the notice has also been sent to such members of the public as have requested such information in accordance to the statute. Adequate notice having been given, the board secretary is directed to include the statement in the minutes of this meeting.
Great. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bordelon?
Here.
Mr. Borneo?
Here.
Mr. Folker?
Had been here.
Mr. Engel? Let me unmute you.
He's muted.
Yeah.
There I am.
There we go.
Okay. Mrs. Koch?
Here.
Mr. Newell?
Here.
Mr. Sobel?
Here.
Mr. Rolfe?
Here.
Mr. Criscola? Mr. Paolo?
Here.
Mr. Leader?
Here. Thank you. Do we have a flag available to post?
Yes.
Would you like to join me in a salute to the flag, please? I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done. So there are two administrative. First of all, do we have any members of the public at all?
There are 6 attendees right now.
So just for the purpose of putting everybody on the same page, this is the first meeting of the planning board since February?
Yeah, March.
This meeting is going to be a meeting where we address old business and nothing but old business. This meeting is also intended to prepare us for a meeting in June where we intend to proceed with new business. And therefore we have posted as applicable notice of how we're meeting this evening on Zoom. And we have invited future applicants to join us this evening to the extent that they have any questions, want to do any sort of communication on the record with regard to procedures that we will follow in June. We have a couple of administrative motions that were recommended by Mr. Kovatz. And so what I would like to do is I would like to read the first of those motions. If these motions require any discussion, we can have that. Otherwise, this will be my motion to pass, and I would need a second. The motion would be that to the extent that there exists any Fairhaven Planning Board procedure or operating rule and/or past practice which could be interpreted to preclude conducting the Planning Board's meeting remotely in accordance with Governor Murphy's executive orders during the present declared state of emergency associated with the COVID-19 pandemic, Be it resolved that the Fairhaven Planning Board suspend such procedure, rule, and/or practice for the duration of the present declared state of emergency. I need a second for our discussion.
Second.
Mr. Sobel?
I'd also like to note that Mr. Folker has joined as well. Mr. Bordelon,
Yes.
Mr. Borneo,
Yes.
Mr. Folker,
Yes.
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Koch,
Yes.
Mr. Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Sobel,
Yes.
Mr. Rolfe,
Yes.
Mr. Paolo,
Yes.
Mr. Leader.
Yes, thank you. Okay. I have another motion I would like to propose. Be it resolved that all action taken by the board secretary and board attorney to conduct the May 19th, 2020 Planning Board regular meeting by remote participation, inclusive of the production of notices and causing publication of same be and hereby are ratified by the Fairhaven Planning Board.
Second.
Mr. Bordelon,
Yes.
Mr. Borneo,
Yes.
Mr. Folker,
Yes.
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Koch,
Yes.
Mr. Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Sobel,
Yes.
Mr. Rolfe,
Yes.
okay, Mr. Paolo,
Yes.
Mr. Leader.
Yes. Okay, we have reorganization next on the agenda. So can someone summarize, or does someone know to summarize, or should I be winging it in terms of what's happened here with regard to membership? So maybe I should know more about that, or maybe I should speak about it.
There are 4 oaths of office tonight for
Right.
Mr. Folker, Mr. Rolfe, Mr. Leader, and Mr. Paolo.
So we had one opening, and Dave was appointed, and there was discussion about changing my seat because I sit on the zoning board, which accommodated a need. So I technically resigned a seat and then was appointed to a different seat. David took the other. What are the reasons for the other 2? Do we know?
I'm not sure, no.
All right. Bill, do you know? You got to unmute.
My term was up.
Your term was up.
If I was reappointed, yeah. In
And
the
this is-
January reorg meeting, I was reappointed, so we haven't had a meeting to do this since.
Okay.
Okay.
And who's the 4th? Jen?
I am. Fred
Mr.
Rolfe.
Rolfe.
Yes, my term was also up, Todd.
Same situation. Got
Yes.
it. Okay. So I'm actually looking for the oath. I think that Jen had circulated this to us by email. Does anybody know the date this was circulated? There it is, 4/7. Do the other 3 people that have to administer their oath have it?
Yes,
Yes.
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 Doug, you want us to try and all read it together in harmony, or you want to do it individually? How you want to do it?
I'll do it together. Just state your name after the I. Okay?
I, Frederick Rolfe,
Hi, Todd Leader.
I, William Folker,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
Swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United
United
States
States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution
Constitution
of the State of New Jersey.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States and in this state,
and to the
governments established in the United States and in this
And in
state.
this state,
in this state.
under the authority of the people,
Under the authority of the people.
authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
That I will
And that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
perform
perform the duties
the duties
the duties
the duties of the Fairhaven Planning Board member according to the best of my ability.
Of
The
the
duties
Fair-
of
of the
planning
Fair-
board-
of the
Fairhaven Planning
best
Board
of
member
my
according to the
ability.
best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
So help me God.
That's optional. You can swear or affirm. Very good. Welcome aboard.
Nice. Bill, that was a great action photo of you right in the middle of that. If anybody missed it, that was classic.
What was I doing?
You just got a great shot up your nose. It was
I saw
clean,
that.
though. It was clean.
I'll move my screen.
Okay. So we have one matter of old business on the agenda.
Chairman,
Yeah,
Chairman.
Don't we have to sign these things?
Yeah.
Yes,
Do we?
you're going to have to sign them. I suggest that we have you sign them, scan and return them, and then they can be sent back to me so I can conform them. And then we'll have one packet for our planning board secretary.
Okay, so we'll sign them and get them to Jennifer.
Correct.
Chairman, if I can be heard.
Yes, you may be heard.
Oh, thank you. I think at this time we would have to, because you are you're under a different class now, we would have to make a motion, or I can make the motion to nominate you as the board chairperson because of the changing class. And Mr. Kovacs, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if this is a reorganization meeting and Mr. Leader, who was the chairman and was approved at the reorganization meeting in January, but if he's taking a separate, if he's accepting another class appointment, that we would have to make a motion to confirm or, I guess, reappoint or appoint if someone else had a change in mind, that Mr. Leader as the chairman of the board.
Out of abundance of caution, may I open the floor for nominations for chair?
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Todd Leader for Chair Planning Board.
I second.
Are there any other nominations? There be.
Mr. Borneo, you don't want it?
I'll pass it this time, but thank you, Andrew. I appreciate the vote of confidence.
I'll close the nominations. Have a voice vote.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? You're back in the saddle, Ms. Flair.
thank you all for your formality. Okay, we have some old business on the agenda. Ms. Strobel, do you have anything with regard to the old business?
It appears that there's a request to withdraw the application of Velarde, Block 77, Lot 62. I'd make a motion to approve the withdrawal of that application.
Second.
I'll second that.
So, Mr. Kovacs, when that letter came in, that's a withdrawal. We're being asked to dismiss it without prejudice?
Yes, generally, I don't believe there was a request one way or the other. In this instance, I would recommend that it be done without prejudice. I think the applicants, after they heard the initial comments from the board and the concerns, decided to either regroup. I don't think it would be appropriate to preclude them in the future if they came back with something before that would be appropriate to be considered by the board.
Okay. I'm sorry, there was a motion by Silva. Was there a second?
Second.
Koch.
Okay. Mr. Bordelon?
Yes.
Mr. Borneo?
Yes.
Mr. Folker?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mrs. Koch?
Yes.
Mr. Newell?
Yes.
Mr. Sobel?
Yes.
Mr. Rolfe?
Yes.
Mr. Paolo?
Yes.
Mr. Leader?
Yes.
We would have to actually, Jennifer, Mr. Paolo would have to abstain from that. I don't believe he was on the board at the time of the hearing.
Abstain then.
Thanks, Dave.
That's a pickup. Andrew's on his game tonight. You want to handle the two administrative items?
Sure. I would make a motion to approve the resolution, the Sackman resolution, which was the subdivision of Block 77, Lot 4.01, also known as 304 Fairhaven Road, which is an R10 zone. This was heard, I believe it was February, was it February or the March? No, I guess, yeah, February 18th of 2020.
I'll second that.
With the conforming resolution that I believe our board attorney prepared.
Right.
If I can be heard on that, there were some minor modifications. It didn't go to the heart of it, but it dealt with how they were handling the triangle. And the other issue that they wanted to address was that they were going to keep the driveways where they were on the representative streets, but didn't want to necessarily be bound by the present locations if they wanted to change those. In other words, they're one's on the corner, one's back on the street, but they weren't going to be. They didn't want to be bound by the existing locations, but they did want to have the egress and ingress at the same location by way of the street.
Gotcha.
Where were it was a Brookside Farm Road in Fairhaven?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Fairhaven Road and Brookside Farm Road.
Okay.
You'll remember there were a handful of sort of check the box type conditions, a few things that were affirmed that were all buttoned up inside of the resolution. And you had communicated with Ms. Krimko directly, Mr. Kovacs, with regard to the further clarifications?
No, I didn't. Ms. Krimko didn't touch the file again. I spoke with Mr. Brodsky.
Oh.
And in fact, got him out a copy of the preliminary resolution. He had suggested some modifications. We worked those through, and I got another version back out to our board secretary for the final, and that's review.
Mr. Kovacs, correct me if I'm wrong. There was no contingencies regarding the sale of the property, correct?
No.
Because since the February 18th of 2020 meeting, they have put the house up for sale, the property up for sale.
Listed it?
Right. I think that was one of the issues that they had, and I think Ms. Krimko alluded to that during the course of the proceeding, wherein they basically wanted to effectuate the subdivision. And I do know that in subsequent conversation with Mr. Brodsky, they said that they were in the process of, or at least trying to sell the property. I think that goes to the heart of some of the issues that they had as to say specific location of where the driveway is or where it's going to be. And I think everything else, the removal of the overhanging limb, et cetera, really didn't impact that. This approval will run with land. The fact that it changes hands, the fact that this is approved will not impact the viability of the board's action in this instance.
So this was not conditioned upon them not listing it for sale, because I believe.
No.
Okay. I'm just trying to remember the meeting at that time, and I could have sworn that they said that they, were not even, they weren't thinking about listing it at that time. They wanted to do the subdivision, and then they would consider what their options were. But
Andrew, I think I got the sense at the meeting that this was the developer proceeding with the subdivision, and that the plan was to potentially list these lots for sale. That's why they didn't have any specifics on the homes. And the sense that I got, and some anxiousness about getting this resolution adopted, is that most transactions like that are not going to close until after the resolution approving the subdivision is adopted, published, and not appealable, probably even conditioned on the recording of the subdivision deed. And they probably listed it because they wanted to hit the spring market. I mean, the fact that they listed it and said that it will be a lot is technically not accurate. I mean, at least at the moment, but it will be. I'm not particularly alarmed. Is anyone else particularly alarmed by the fact that they listed it before they finalized subdivision?
Was it listed as one lot or two lots?
I'm unsure.
I don't think we have that information in front of us.
Right. Because if it's listed as one lot, I mean, it's listed as a lot. That's what it is now. So.
Well, and frankly, listings contain inaccurate information. I mean, it's generally a solicitation, and then, depending on what the contract said, but it's consistent with the intent of the board because it's consistent with the approval. It's just a little premature to
actually transferred as a single lot.
Yeah, if I may speak to that point, 2 points. I have a pretty clear recollection of the chairman saying at the time is, look, it's pretty clear that these guys are just coming in to get this subdivision done. And I think at that point, it was at least relatively clear that, as the chair has already said, this was to affect the subdivision and then, do whatever they needed to do. That's why they didn't show you pretty pictures of proposed developments at the site, because they didn't know who was going to own it in the future or what they wanted to develop. Number two, this is, even with the approval of this resolution, basically it preserves their right for that subdivision. They still have to go out and protect the subdivision. They still have conditions that they have to get approved, or at least conditions of approval, to basically get the map filed and do those things. If for some reason they didn't perfect that subdivision, well, then it isn't subdivided. If they do, they've preserved their right to do that, and they've taken all the steps, and if they meet all the conditions, then it will be subdivided. So I don't know how they're listing it at this point in time. It matters with regard to what we're doing, because the language of our approval basically says, once the subdivision is perfected, the applicant shall divide the property into 2 lots, and it's proposed lot 4.03, 4.04, based upon the dimensions that they gave us. With this resolution being approved, they now have to, perfect that subdivision either by deed or by map, and filing those things and proceed. Depending on the new purchaser, if as a result of their negotiations, the new purchaser says, heck no, I'd like it to be 1 lot, they just don't have to perfect the subdivision.
Mr. Coe,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure there was no conditions on the resolution. So I will continue. I'll continue my motion to approve the resolution.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to let you know that Mr. Brodsky is an attendee, and so is Morgan Sackman, and she currently has her hand raised.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was watching that. I just want to confirm that this was a fully conforming subdivision. There were no variances granted, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. I'm sitting here looking at the raised hand flag and wondering what we would do if we were in a live meeting. I think we would probably stop at this point and hear the comment, just at the off chance that this relates to how we should be voting. It's not the public session, but can we, Jen, hear from Morgan's raised hand?
Sure. Do you want me to bring her on as a panelist so we can see her? Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Hello?
Hey, Morgan, we can see just your name. We can't see you, but you are unmuted, and we did hear you say hello. So if you have a comment for the board.
No, I just want to keep it simple and say that we did not list the property. So our original kind of comments about closing, deciding, and having the possibility to build was our intention. So just the idea that we did list the property is untrue.
Okay. Thank you, Morgan.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Sobel, you raised the question. We kind of threw it around, and I think that what we've determined is that it isn't necessarily relevant. It didn't flag any concerns, and Morgan says it wasn't listed. You were making a motion?
That's fine and dandy, but I was just checking with my board counsel to make sure that there was no condition upon it, and that's basically what my position was and my point. But okay, if it's untrue, it's untrue. I'll continue with my motion to approve.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Newell, Borneo.
Okay. Mr. Bordelon?
Yes.
Mr. Borneo?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mrs. Koch?
You have to unmute. Oh, there she is.
Mrs. Koch?
Oh, am I muted? Hold on.
Oh, no, you're not anymore.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Mr. Newell?
Yes.
Mr. Sobel?
Yes.
And Mr. Leader?
Yes. I'm still seeing a Morgan raised hand, but I have to believe that's the old Morgan raised hand. Okay,
I'll continue with a motion to approve the minutes from the February 18th, 2020 Planning Board meeting.
Second,
Okay, Mr. Bordelon,
Yes.
Mr. Borneo,
Yes.
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Koch,
yes.
Mr. Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Sobel,
Yes.
and Mr. Leader.
yes. So that concludes our old business and our administrative items. We are going to open it to the public. And if anybody has any comments or would like to ask any questions about how we're going to conduct our meeting in June or anything for the good of the order. Part of the reason that, the original thinking was to do this was to make sure that everybody had a chance to sign on. We did do the informational session close to a month ago. We've now done this. Everybody's on correctly. And I think we have a sense of it. I think the preparation and presentation of materials is going to be different next month. But does anybody have any questions about the way that we'll conduct the public meeting in June?
No.
No.
Anybody have anything further before we open to the public?
No good.
Good.
No.
Okay.
Excuse me, one question, Todd. Did we ascertain how we'll do what a sort of closed session, or is that to be determined yet?
I'll let you, Doug.
Do you mean executive session?
I'm sorry, yes, I meant executive session, so sorry, yes.
Well, what we did was for our council meeting, when we went into executive session,
Yes.
we paused Zoom and then had a telephone conference. And then once the telephone conference was over, we reactivated Zoom.
I've also seen it done as when it's determined that an executive session needs to go. It's not overly complicated, but it usually takes a little more time. We've had sort of a fallback position that isn't for a second Zoom meeting. We can leave that to our tech people, but the way I've had it handled is that there's a second Zoom meeting set up, you quick go into there, you have your discussions, you log out, and you come back to the other meeting again.
Okay,
Perhaps just the telephone conference might be easier.
yes.
So
Okay.
what I think would be important is if we felt like we had to go into executive session to get it onto the agenda and to think about it in advance.
Yes.
Do we currently have any litigation pending?
Not at this time, and I don't think there's a need to go into executive session for this at this point in time with regard to the planning board's action that was challenged on the Dunkin' Donuts appeal. Plaintiff has now withdrawn with prejudice their appeal of the planning board's action. The short way to say that is the planning board's approval stands at this point, I believe, and again, I can't speak for the plaintiff's counsel. I believe that they are continuing the Zoning Board of Adjustment appeal, and I think for reasons of economy decided that that was the best way to go.
Yes, that's so. Just so everybody knows, the appeal of the zoning officer's determination that the application was not a exempt development is still pending before the zoning board and will be heard in June. Well, I'm sorry. No.
I think that's a different application, Chairman.
I just switched to a different deal. I'm sorry. Yes, the zoning board appeal that was filed on Dunkin' Donuts, the zoning board was sustained, and the appellant has taken it to the appellate court, and that's in process.
Zoning board decision, correct?
Did I screw something else up? Maybe this
No,
isn't
that's
my note.
perfect.
No, you were correct.
No,
I think
board.
So that's now on appeal. So it went to freehold. Zoning board won. The objector now takes it on appeal up to the appellate level. It's a review on the whatever. It's on the record. It's on bank, whatever. And so we're now going through that. But they did withdraw their challenge to the approval of the site plan independent of that before the planning board, which was running contemporaneously.
But that doesn't say, so I believe then that what they want to get is final determination on the zoning board decision, correct?
Yeah, that's all that is, right.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, thank you.
And that's with regard to the merits of whether or not they were needed to cite.
And from your professional, both you and Doug, and all the attorneys online here, what sort of timeline are we looking at for that decision to be rendered?
June.
It has no bearing on the planning board, though.
I understand. But if that is overruled, then it's all back to them. If that is sustained, I believe they'll come after us again. That's just what I want to know.
No, they can't come back after us. They already, if Mr. Kovacs
But
said that, they would draw with prejudice.
Yeah, if I can. As far as the planning board is concerned,
Yes.
the planning board would only become involved in this again if the appellate division were to say that the determination made by the zoning board of adjustment that it was a class 2 restaurant was correct. And really, it still wouldn't come before the planning board then anyway, because it would basically moot
Go back.
our approvals. And then the applicant for Dunkin' Donuts would have to decide what they were going to do. If they were going to start the application anew, and the appellate division had said it shouldn't have been before the planning board, they would start their application before the zoning board of adjustment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so their argument is that if it isn't a class 2, then it was a non-permitted use. That would mean it required a D variance, which would mean the site plan would have been properly before the zoning board. So if they prevail, the applicant would then need to take the site plan from go back to the zoning board.
Right.
Thank you.
I agree.
Okay. Jen, before we move on to any public comments, what is on the agenda for June?
Just the Fairhaven Retail over easy. I guess it's dependent upon the zoning board's decision as well.
So, Doug, so that's pending before, that's where I went accidentally before.
Yes.
But so that's pending before the zoning board, and that will be heard first Thursday in June. To the extent that a decision is rendered there that is not in favor of the applicant, would they then be able to come before the planning board 2 weeks later?
Forgive me, what is being appealed before?
So they're contesting the determination by the zoning officer that over easy is not an exempt development. So that appeal was filed in a timely manner and has been pending before the zoning board for a number of months. They filed in the alternative before the planning board for a site plan for over easy. So it would play out that they would get denied at zoning board and then be first on our agenda for June. Would we then hear them 2 weeks later, or would our resolution need to be adopted and published and become non-appealable before they would proceed that far?
No, I think they could come before us. Hyper-technically, you need the memorialization of that, but I don't see that would preclude them from coming before the planning board 2 weeks later.
Okay.
Because the determination by the zoning board of adjustment had been made. The memorialization is just that. It's not a do-over. It's basically, okay, this is what we did. It may affect certain appeal rights. And I guess we would talk to the applicant's counsel at that point in time, once the zoning board of adjustment had rendered its decision, and have a discussion with them as to how they wanted to proceed. But I think technically they can come before the planning board 2 weeks after.
So if the zoning board affirms their position and overrules the zoning officer, the site plan would be moot because they would be an exempt development not requiring site plan, and we would not hear it in June. If the zoning board sustains the decision of the zoning officer, then it sounds like we could hear over easy for a site plan in June.
I agree with all of those statements.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
And Jen, there's nothing else on the agenda?
Nope.
Great. Okay. We're now going to open it up to the public. And so again, any comment where we would normally hear any comments, and if there's anybody that has any interest in any future business of the board and has any questions about the Zoom process, how things will be conducted or what have you, we'd be happy to hear those questions and try and talk it through.
No one currently has their hand raised.
Bueller.
I would make a motion to close the public session.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anything else in closing?
Good job, Todd, and congratulations again.
Everybody,
If any of you wondered how I could be sitting at the end of the natural area pond, you too can have that kind of capability if you wish. Zoom provides the capability of giving you backgrounds alternate to the one that you're sitting in. And all of you, I guess, are sitting in your house at this time.
no, this is a picture of my house. I'm sitting outside.
Yes. You're actually seeing a cardboard cutout of me.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, it's a relatively simple process. And any of you that want to do it can hang around. You go down to the lower left-hand corner of your screen, and you'll see a tiny picture of a video camera called Stop Video. Just to the right of that is a tiny up arrow. If you click on that up arrow, you will see select and camera. In my case, it says FaceTime. The second one up says choose virtual background. If you choose, you can click that one and you will be offered a series of about 5 choices of background by Zoom. Now, I assume, Jennifer, that you have paid Zoom some amount of money to do this sort of thing. And in that case, they will download these virtual backgrounds for free. So the price is right. That's how I got virtual backgrounds. I have a choice. They give you choices of things like the Golden Gate Bridge. You could go out outer space. You could do Aurora Borealis. You could do all those fancy things. I happen to choose sitting at the pond at the end of the natural area. So technically, I'm as much with you as anybody else. If you people want to do it, I can go through it with you. For those that aren't interested, just simply drop off.
Jim, can you do it on your phone or do you have to do it on your laptop?
I don't know about doing it on a phone. There's not much room on the phone for backgrounds. I don't know the answer to that one, Elizabeth.
Okay.
I happen to be on a 27-inch computer, so I have a very large screen which to do it. I see that Rich Gardella has gone to the beach, so he has that kind of capability. David's gone upside down. I don't know how to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Second. Oops.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks so much, everybody. I think this is really important. I think we've made a good first step here. June is perhaps going to be more challenging. Let's maintain our patience, but part of the process of getting back to normal. It's great to see everybody.
Thanks,
Great.
Todd.
Yeah, thanks, Todd.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.